Hi everyone, this is our first long form video for Northland Hobby. Today we're talking to Mark Peacock here, and I'll introduce himself a little bit.
Okay, yes, well my name's Mark Peacock. I have been an active scale modeller since I was about the age of 6. Another dimension is that I used to publish books principally bought by modelers on aircraft, single aircraft types, which are published in the UK before I came over to New Zealand 2 years ago. And I've also been involved in the magazine publishing industry, which part of which was involved with scale modelling activity and so forth. I was a Versement Director of Scale Aviation Modeller for the best part of 7 years. So there's an interesting sort of multifaceted side to it. I've been within the industry and also an enthusiast. So I've got an opportunity to see both sides, really.
Fantastic, yeah. So welcome to the store.
Thank you very much.
Been in a few times. And
yes, I bought lots of things I don't need, but then that's us, isn't it?
Yeah. We always just collect the stash, and it's someone else's problem later.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to start with is probably a little bit of your time. Maybe we'll talk about your publishing history and go from there, really.
Yeah. Well, I started in magazines in 1977, but didn't really get involved with the hobby side of publications until 1998, when I was asked to head up an advertising sales team for Scale Aviation Modeller International. And that's really when I sort of started getting even more deeper into the hobby as well. Although professionally one should distance oneself from subject matter, I found it very difficult not to. But I got to know the industry quite well over the years. And when I came in '98, there are a lot of developments going on. Tamiya were considered to be the brand that was the pinnacle, and they still are to a great bit of quality tooling, excellence in just about everything. Accurate Miniatures were starting to make waves as well, and you see their kits, of course, now retooled by Academy and Italeri. And Airfix and Revell were still there. Revell were producing some very nice new tool kits in Germany, but Airfix were still there, but still going through a bit of a rocky period in terms of really who owned them. There was nothing really new coming through, and they seemed to be losing their way a bit, but they were still being kept up by a very, very nostalgic group of enthusiasts who wanted to see them succeed. The publishing side, it got me very, very much involved with getting involved with understanding how these various companies work. I got an appreciation fairly early on that a lot of the development that was happening was starting to come from Eastern Europe. And that's proven very much today with the likes of Eduard, Special Hobby in the Czech Republic, and others who produce some excellently tooled product,
and
as well as
very rare subjects as well.
Very rare subjects that you wouldn't normally see, and also a very, very busy aftermarket industry, but also bizarrely enough from Ukraine. The Ukrainians, in spite of the fact they're being bombed to oblivion, there are at least half a dozen companies out there who are producing some excellent stuff on a regular basis. ICM, Masterbox, Clear Prop, just to name a few, and they're producing new subjects on a regular basis without interruption and supplying them to the trade.
Absolutely.
So it is really, really quite amazing. Yeah. So, in short, I mean, if you're a modeller, now is probably the best time to be one.
That's true.
Well,
that's a good segue into some of the new Airfix kits.
Yeah.
So we've got here today Gloucester Gladiator Mark 1 2. So tell us a little bit about this, because it's one of the retooled kits.
It is. This is one of the generation of new toolings that Airfix have done over the years. I mean, since from the moment that the Hornby Group bought them, the Airfix brand, and developed it, I think pretty nearly well over 95% of what's in their inventory now are new tools from when they first started in the mid 2000s. This is it's a little gem. This is the third gestation in the box of it. It first came out with, well, actually no, fourth. In fact, it first came out with markings for Cobber Kane's aircraft when he was based at Digby in 1937, together with a Belgian option. It then came out with a sort of an interesting one with a Swedish volunteer with skis option, which is really nice. Then there's a Battle of France era aircraft, and now this, which has got a Met flight option and a very nice colourful Norwegian option, which in fact the Shuttleworth aircraft used to fly. At one point it was the only flying Gladiator in the world. It's got a very nice interior, which is sort of simple to put together. The struts are quite cleverly assembled, much the same way they've been doing a lot of their small scale biplanes, that you can assemble them in one piece onto the lower wing, join the top wing up, and they're braced by 2 bits of plastic, which is cut away when it's dry. So you don't have this problem with having to align 4 struts at any one time. And anyone who's built the 1950s tool Sopwith Camel will probably breathe a sigh of relief if they didn't put off biplanes for life. There are options in there as well for tropical filters and standard temperature filters. There are various options for you to use different aerial positions on the fin if you need to. It really is a lovely little gem, and not too difficult for someone with average skills to put together and make a decent result out of it. And if you're prepared to spend the money and you don't want to run the risk of actually rigging it, there is a company in Hungary called SBS which actually does an etched rigging set, which you can use just using tweezers and a bit of cyanoacrylate glue.
Wow.
So it's as a biplane to start with, actually probably quite a nice one, and it's typical of what the new products that Airfix do produce now. I mean, they're very nicely detailed. They're not necessarily over fussy. They do go together quite well. And there's some interesting marking options with them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean,
So with these kits, I understand obviously you're running some clubs at school and so forth, because a lot of what we do and the hobby in general is how do we get people in, how do we keep them sticky and staying with what we do. So tell me a bit about what you're doing there.
Well, one of the things which is something which I sort of carry over from what I did in the UK when I set up an Airfix club at my grandson's primary school, is that one of the first things I started doing when I arrived here 2 years ago, I started volunteering at the local primary school in Onarahi, and I mooted to them after a few months that did they do any after school clubs, and they said, well, they don't, because everyone goes home at 3 o'clock here. So okay, fine. So well, what would be the chances of, say, us being able to set up a scale model club using the Challenge Airfix sets? I selected the World War I tank sets as being something to use, and they said, yeah, well, we'll give it a go. So they paid for a set of World War I tanks in the Airfix Challenge sort of kit sets, which they provide for schools and scout groups and organisations like that. And it proved to be very successful, and we've now got our 3rd group running in at the school. One of the things I've discovered about children is that it's quite good getting them to put something together. And the great thing is with kids is that if you can give them the basic tools to make life easy for them, which they all get, and also the kit set itself and the paint itself, they do like their imagination to flow, and they do like putting them in settings. So once we built the tanks, we then put them in various no-man land settings. So they had great fun cutting up styrofoam, slapping lots and lots of sort of brown poster paint on, making trenches and puddles and bomb blasts and God knows what else. And it carried over to the next group where they were making sort of road dioramas for cars or runways for aircraft. So we're going to go, this group, we're going to go next stage further. We're actually going to do some airfield buildings out of scrap card and balsa wood. So they're getting the kit set experience, learning how to read instructions, learning a bit of hand-eye coordination, learning how to use materials and tools, which I provided for free. And at the same time, going back to basics, using sort of ruler, pencil, a set of scissors, and work out, how big this building's got to be to get your aircraft in.
Yeah.
So it's really a whole multiplicity of things that I'm doing with it.
No, that's so great.
Which is fun, and it's certainly got a good reaction. Well, I've now got in total nearly 20 kids doing this.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah. So it's definitely a hope that more schools pick up around the place, and I'd like to imagine that it can be advertised in a way where they do. But anyway,
well, it's got a great support from parents. It does. Is that they do. And the thing with children, and I find it less of a problem here. I think parents are generally very supportive of anything that will help a child sort of develop motor skills in this, because this is a very practical nation. The problem I always had particularly with parents or grandparents in the UK was that if a child looked at a kit box, it's the thing that puts him off is when a parent or an adult tells them, "Oh, you can't do that because you've got to glue it, you've got to paint it," and that those dangerous words, "you can't." It is the worst thing you could possibly do to a child. So we just applaud every little victory they have.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter at the end of it what it looks like. At this stage, it really doesn't. It's putting the thing together and just understanding that you're not going to get it right first time. But if they're happy, but you don't tell them that they haven't got it right. If you tell them, that's fine, that's good, you've built it. You've painted it. All you can do is just show them how it can be done. Exactly. And then get them to do it. And above all, enjoy doing it. And so far, I'm getting thumbs up on pretty much sort of all quarters, really.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll just go back. So what are you doing now with your publishing? I believe you're doing this. Valiant
Wings Publishing.
Valiant
yes.
Wings.
Well,
yes.
I'm sort of semi-retired. I sold my share in the business before it came out, but I still consult for them. And as I mentioned, we've this is the latest book that we produced, which is on the famous German Junkers 88 book, covering the Night Fighter and odd sort of experimental versions. What we've done is to take a popular with modelers disease, or sometimes not so popular aircraft type, and what we try and do is provide, if you like, a one-stop shop for someone for using it as a reference work. And it goes into covering the history of the type from prototype to final production. In the case of some of the German ones, even stuff that never got off the drawing board. And then we pack into the detailed differences through the history, camouflage and markings, because that's a very important part of modelling, of the whole modelling scene. And in fact, it probably creates more debate and sort of flame wars on the internet than anything else, I should think.
But squiggle lines out of place.
We actually do these rather nice, neat little isometric drawings, which take the detail through of the aircraft through to from prototype right through to final production. So it annotates every detail that we know of. We've got walk-around pictures of aircraft where there are preserved examples you can photograph, as well as information from original flight manuals. Then kit assessments in the airframe miniature series. There's 3 different book series that we do. We don't always go into detail so much on the kits and the others. And where my ex-business partner and the author Richard Franks literally sits in his work shed down in Wiltshire in England, and literally assesses every kit that's been done.
Wow.
Yeah. And there isn't anybody else in the world who's done that.
So it just goes through.
Yeah, goes through it bit by bit, and then sort of lists of decals, accessories, which are there, which were available at the time, and also kit builds. I mean, we use a number of kit builders all over the world, including a very good one in the Czech Republic. We use one in Spain and another one in England, so and Wales. So yeah, it's a whole sort of. It's a whole international family.
Yeah, fantastic books, and the quality of them is just amazing. Because for me, being more used to miniatures, I've always been interested. Obviously, Osprey Publishing has been massive for colour line books, but this is definitely again a step above, because obviously not only does it focus massively on the aircraft itself, but on the model kits as well. That's amazing. Yeah. That kind of detail is really missing from often proper reviews, reviews of things where it's both sides of the story, really.
Oh yeah. Well, we use some colourburn. We use Richard Caruana, who's based in Malta, who's a well-known profile artist, and he's been around for years. So we use him for those, which is quite a strong draw. And for the artwork, we use either a Polish or a Slovak artist, because these guys are right at the top of their game.
Yeah.
And so it's a whole, if you like, international family.
Yeah. Wow. It's amazing. So I noticed this book that you brought in as well, How to Go Plastic Modelling.
That's part of my history. I mean, that book literally unlocked the hobby for me.
Amazing.
Written by a chap called Chris Ellis, who at the time was editor of Airfix magazine. He was famous for doing sort of scratch build military modelling conversions at the time. And for a 10-year-old schoolboy, it just sort of opened up the mystique of sanding down join lines, using putty to fill holes and things, and simple conversion work, which was well within. And he had the great gift, and he still has the great gift of making a hobby actually accessible to everybody.
Yeah.
And a lot of what's in there, a lot of the techniques in there, are still relevant today. It's in terms of basic instruction. Of course, you don't get sort of a massive amount of colour because it's all in black and white, and yes, there's quite a bit of reading to do because it's quite text heavy. But I still have it, and I still use it from time to time because it was great in its time. It's still great now.
Yeah, I was just reading through some pages of it, and it's just nice just to have that detailed text down there. Yeah. Just even for the basic steps. Yeah. It's like, wow, this is so great. It's absolutely so great, and obviously that passes on to more of our older, anything probably from the start of modelling up until the 80s, 90s even, where we have magazines, the Airfix one in particular in front of you.
Yeah, well, I worked, I still keep my old sort of Airfix magazines from years gone by, simply because they're nowadays for two reasons. I mean, one, you can find some very, very well researched articles on converting basic kits from scratch, and it's quite good fun going and playing around with scrap materials from time to time rather than investing in aftermarket, just to keep your hand in. But in some cases it's the only choice because there isn't the aftermarket available to do it.
It's true.
And the other interesting thing for me has always been the letters to the editor's page, which to a degree is the equivalent of an internet forum now. Because you find pretty much all the subjects that are discussed in the reader's letters are discussed on internet forums these days. It's accuracy, colour, and I mean the only difference being is that the guys who are writing these were quite often the protagonists during the past conflicts and actually saw firsthand what it was and were probably better qualified there to talk about what it was. Two, they actually have, they're actually literate, which a lot of internet forums aren't.
Yes.
So that's quite refreshing, but it's a very interesting social commentary. I find the letters to the editor. They're a wonderful archive of what the hobby was like. And of course, one can't forget the likes of Alan W. Hall, who introduced everyone to conversion work, and I suspect spawned the aftermarket industry we knew today, where he suggested where he goes through the process of actually creating an Avro Manchester from a Lancaster by using balsa wood blocks, talcum powder, and lots of sanding down.
Fantastic.
Mixing. Yes, it was to create the finish. You mixed up talcum powder with cellulose dope to take away the and then coat the balsa wood with it so it actually blends with the plastic. I think everyone at some point has tried. Of a certain age has tried Alan Hall's conversion work, and it's either succeeded or failed. That's
definitely a blast from the past.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it is nice actually for Airfix as well, because they got such a broad church to cover. Being the brand that everyone associates with plastic modelling, is that alongside all the new toolkits they produced, they are reintroducing girl favourites in both figures, small-scale military, and aircraft, which they haven't got round to retooling yet, as vintage classics, and they're quite reasonably priced.
They are,
and they're still good fun to build.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
I mean, okay, you could probably got to do a bit of clean up with some of the plastic here and there, but they still build okay. If they built 60 years ago, okay, they'll build now.
It's true, That's true.
And they are a lot of fun to do, because you can also with them you can also go straight back in, and not only, and I quite often build old ones which. To exorcise my modelling demons from when I was 10, to actually get them right, and a lot of people buy them to do that, as well as collecting them, because you can then also put your own scratch build cockpits in. It corrects one or two little errors if you feel they offend the eye. Rescribe the panel lines if you want. You can go back to basic modelling. And it's a lot of fun to do, and it's something I do recommend. Is that if you're bored with sort of with the ease that a Tamiya or an Edward kit goes together, just get a vintage classic and try it. It'll bring you down to earth, if nothing else.
Fantastic, Mark. Look, I've really enjoyed the chat today.
So have I.
Did you want to give out some information of how people can contact you if they would like to have further discussion, reach out to you if possible?
Well, indeed, yes. I mean, you can you can get me on my I think best way to get to me is find me on Facebook, because I've got a personal Facebook page. Valiant Wings has also got a Facebook page. If you wish to email me, it's peacockmark66@gmail.com.
Perfect.
If anyone's interested in the shameless commercial plug coming here. If anyone is interested in the Valiant Wings books and inquiring about them, valiantwings.co.uk is the UK website, but we do distribute the books through Battle Books in Wellington in New Zealand.
Fantastic.
So there's a New Zealand outlet here where you can get hold of them. And Dave Reeves at Wellington in Wellington is an absolute gem. He's a really good guy.
I'm going to have to get hold of him.
Yeah. Good.
Great.
Thank you very much indeed for the opportunity, David.
Thanks, Mark.